Good evening and welcome to the BBC's entry for this year's most promising news quiz featuring 4 panellists sitting in a semicircle award. After fears that John Major may not be exciting enough to win the next election, British scientists come up with an idea for doubling his charisma. Meanwhile, following the decision by the Labour Party to win young people round to socialism before they reach voting age, Neil Kinnock's colleagues accuse him of going too far. As a leadership vacuum develops in Iran, David Owen finally sees his chance for power. And following claims that John Major's performance at Maastricht was disappointing, government chiefs decide that in future negotiations he'll be replaced by a plate of biscuits. As you can see, we've pulled out all the stops to give this Have I Got News for Yuletide special a festive air, which is why the BBC have splashed out on both bits of silver tinsel here. That's doubled the budget. For this one-off extended review of the year, Ian Hislop is joined by someone who specialises in playing slobs, bores, louts and half-wits, so he should feel at home here tonight. Harry Enfield. Good evening. And with Paul Merton, someone who also feels at home with slobs, bores, louts and half-wits. He's a keen Arsenal supporter, Clive Anderson. So let's plunge headfirst into round one with an obscure story from earlier in the year that you may just remember. Ian and Harry. Who's zooming who here?
That's the war where we went to liberate Kuwait. Was it, at the beginning of the year?
Sounds so long ago.
It was this year, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was, yes.
Get rid of the Iraqi torturers and replace them with Kuwaiti torturers.
Satire.
It was very successful, and we went in against Hussein, and he's still there. So I think we can call that a major victory for Hussein.
But Mrs. Thatcher isn't still there.
No, well, that's just a bonus, but...
Well, she wasn't there when it started, anyway, was she?
Well, she didn't... Not in Kuwait, no, but she was in 10 Downing Street, if you cast your mind back.
Was she?
That's all we've time for on panel. It's the Gulf War, 1991 to 91. The Land War, of course, being all over in 4 days. Saddam had promised the mother of all battles, but in fact it turned out to be more the second cousin twice removed of all battles. Back in London, there was a major scare when the entire Allied war plan was stolen from the car of Wing Commander David Farquhar. He blamed his negligence on the fact that he was taking the drug Imodium, which is a diarrhea cure, but he was glad he had a packet of those around when he noticed it had been stolen. Paul and Clive.
Can I just say at that point, it's interesting how the security service in this country work. So I had a phone call the day after it was stolen from a man who runs the D-Notice committee, and I thought, oh dear, I've done something wrong. And he said, you haven't heard anything, have you, about where these papers are? And I said, no, I'm terribly sorry, I haven't. He said, well, if you do, just give us a bell.
Actually,
so we're all safe.
Actually, I had a phone call the day after it was stolen, but it was nothing to do with that. It was my father, I think.
Oh, right. That's an interesting story.
Yes.
What did your father want? No. Paul and Clive, 3 days, 1 summer for you to identify.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, this is a new Keep Fit video, Shape Up and Dance with President Gorbachev.
Well, we've spotted that it was President Gorbachev, I think, correctly.
Anything interesting happened to him this year?
Well, he's not had a great year, has he, really? It's been...
He had a nice holiday.
Yeah. I didn't see how the girl fits in.
Well, I'll tell you.
I know that.
Oh, yes, come on.
I know. That's his granddaughter, Irina, I believe.
Very
That's
good.
all I know about her. She's 14. She's available for bookings.
Her and Bill Wyman, wasn't it?
She's only 14.
Yeah, a bit old for him, I think.
A bit old for him.
Yes, it's a home video made by Mikhail Gorbachev during the 3 days he was confined to his dacha by his captors, a recording he made over an old tape of his granddaughter dancing in the living room. That'll be fun to look at in later years. There's little Ksenia dancing in the living room. There's the attempted overthrow of the most powerful leader in the communist world. Oh, look, and there's Granny dusting the mantelpiece. Ian and Harry, who's this? Who's done so much for his family?
Oh, my word!
There's the pension fund.
How do you get £5 million, 5 billion into a box, and then it disappears?
Well, I think you identified it was Robert Maxwell anyway, which is the answer we were looking for. It's the
I want
late...
to see him on top of a 20-year-old girl. Did you see that? It was just a Sunday Mirror. I just loved it, the Sunday Mirror they had. Did you see that? There was a secretary who said, Maxwell slept with me. And they said, was he gentle with you? She said, well, as gentle as a 22-stone man.
Well, the one I
Sorry,
read...
it tickled me.
And her, I guess, so, yes.
Yes, if anyone sees a girl 6 foot by 4 foot by 2 inches. But now, purely for your entertainment, a chance to see the celebrated moment when, after Kevin Maxwell applied to Judge Harmon for the return of his passport, his lordship emerged from the throng of pressmen to get into his taxi.
Who are you? I'm the cab driver. Are you the driver? Sure.
Isn't he just gorgeous? Paul and Clive, whose cultured right boot is this?
That was one cabbie who wasn't going to go south of the river, isn't it? Just been kicked south of the river, in fact.
Hey.
Oh, that's poor old Gaza. Did a sort of neck-high tackle. And then he did another one. He kept doing it until his leg fell off. And then he burst into tears, and he's been repeating that in nightclubs up and down the land ever since.
It's Paul Gascoigne, the man with the physique of a blow-up doll, with brains to match. He now faces a race against time to get fit before May, which he's doing by being punched by invisible men and falling downstairs in nightclubs. Excellent training for playing against Italian defenders. Which trivia brings us bounding to the end of this first round, at which point, the score is about as even as Stevens can be. Paul and Clive have 4, and Ian and Harry have 4. Well, round 2 beckons, but before all that, in a futile attempt to inject a little festive spirit into the proceedings, we bring you our Christmas caption competition. 1 seasonal image per team. Paul and Clive, this is yours. Ian and Harry, this is for you. And in the hours that crawl by between now and the end of this extended pantomime, it's your solemn task to come up with a Christmas cracker of a caption or two. But first, let's confront you with a number of 1991 tabloid headlines to decipher. Paul, a rather everyday claim for you. David phoned and said Socrates had just asked him to save the world.
David Icke, it must be, presumably.
It's David Owen.
David
sure,
Owen, yeah.
David Icke.
He went bonkers and predicted that Oxford United would get promotion.
Yes. He said Arsenal would do quite well in Europe as well, I suppose.
Yes. It's David Icke, the former Coventry goalkeeper, now son of God, one of the less publicised close-season transfers. To prove that he was the son of God, Icke announced that by the end of the year, Saddam Hussein would be dead, and that the Isle of Arran would have been sunk beneath the waves under a gigantic earthquake. Well, unless there are some major surprises on tonight's news, it looks as if Socrates has been at the ouzo again. Clive, a salacious little number for you. If she's a tart, I'll give her the boot.
I'm not sure about this, but there was a story earlier on the year about Norman Lamont, who'd rented out a flat of his to somebody who'd advertised herself as relief masseurs or something.
Wasn't it Princess Diana? I got confused. I didn't know what...
I don't know if you ever managed to get rid of her or what terms they agreed for her departure.
Well, I'm not sure that she did ever leave, actually. It concerns the house...
You're saying she's still there? In Norman Lamont's house?
I'll give you the address if you'd like it.
How do you have the address, Clive?
How do I have the address?
Of where she is?
Well, if you go to the phone booth just outside here,
Yes,
there's quite a number of interesting addresses.
If I could just leap in here. It's concerns...
Happy Harry is the one I rather like.
I wouldn't bother.
I'm just rather shocked that you're so rude. I thought you're a rather nice man. You're rather vulgar, aren't you?
Yes, it turned out to be Miss Sarah Dale, who was alleged to be a prostitute, but who insisted she was a sex therapist who merely practiced in the nude, so as not to distract her clients. Must I always find that when I go to the dentist, so much less distracting if they're completely naked. Presumably now when Lamont goes home and finds a message that the chief whip called, he doesn't know whether to phone the House of Commons or pop downstairs.
He's just gabbling.
Harry, another deeply religious headline for you. God's cock goes with a rocket.
James Anderton, is it?
He's a teapot, is he?
Why are you doing Larry Grayson?
I'm doing it. That's my James Anderton.
You're miming a beard.
So I thought I'd make it sound good. I thought
mime of a beard.
Well, he's slightly camp, isn't he? You know. Well, I always thought he was. Anyway. I don't know.
He's guessing wildly here.
Yes. Well, he went.
Yes, he retired, yes.
There was a bit of a row before he retired.
Good.
And he got a rocket from somebody as a leaving present, possibly from the Soviet Union.
It's sad to see a man groping in quite that pathetic way. It's the retirement last March of the chief constable of Greater Manchester, Sir James Anderton, who controversially claimed he got his orders directly from God. The rocket in question came from the local council and police authorities after his increasingly bizarre pronouncement. He accused homosexuals of swirling around in a human cesspit of their own making.
Yeah.
I've got a phone number for that one as well, if you want.
If you could just leave them behind afterwards, that'd be lovely. And he was also accused of wolf-whistling Fergie when she bent down during an official visit. So that proves he's mad. And finally in this round, Ian, brilliant advertising or just a tacky attempt to get free publicity?
Maxwell's death.
Well, you might be right, but it's not the answer I got written here.
No, this is the United Colours of Benetton advert. They put up on a hoarding all over the country a newly born baby with everything on it, sort of blood and the umbilical cord. I don't know why this is the United Colours of Benetton.
Well, it's because their jumpers now come with umbilical cords.
Now we know. The newborn baby was the third in a line of outrageous and shocking Benetton ads, the others showing a black woman and a white baby, and two heterosexual priests. Now, that is unusual.
Actually, United Colours of Benetton are really featured in your waistcoat tonight, aren't they, Angus? It's rather smart, isn't
Are they?
Yes.
Well, there's one or two. Do you
It
want to
reminds you
talk
a bit of
about
a newborn baby, doesn't it?
They're not born with waistcoats, Clive. We will learn this.
What are you talking about?
Are
you on drugs, Harry, or what? I was simply drawing attention to the sartorial elegance of the chairman. I think it's a jolly nice waistcoat.
And thank you, and I
I'm
hurl
going
it
back
back
to
in your
sleep.
general direction. All of which drags us screaming to the end of round two, at which point, well, at long last, yes, Paul and Clive have 8, but Ian and Harry are opening a gap with 9.
Demand a recount. What question did we not get right in the course of that?
It's no good, Clive. I've been through this with them.
And so we target round 3, our hugely confusing but still mildly popular connections round. Each team sees before it a dazzling array of sights and sounds which together encapsulate a major news story of the year. Ian and Harry, unravel this lot.
Gold fingers.
Oh, dear.
And with the slightest touch, a spider's touch,
Oh, I know what that is.
such a cold finger.
Leather books. Now, Ratner got into trouble earlier this year by admitting, rather stupidly, that one of his goods was crap.
All of his goods.
No, you'll find you'll
One of
get a
his
lot of lawyers coming and jumping on your head, Clive.
Yes. I've got the number for that one as well.
Yes, it is. It is.
We don't get a
Joe
point
Ratner.
for being funny then, Angus.
Not by the looks of things.
It wasn't all his products, it was the decanter.
Right.
Yes.
That's right, yes.
And what he was actually saying was that all the other stuff, the earrings and stuff, are very, very good value.
Right.
Anyway, his share price fell through the floor.
He said
because
you'd be
the
better
punters-
off buying a prawn sandwich, it would last longer.
Yeah.
He
From
did.
M&S.
You're not
He
getting
did,
any more
yeah.
points, though. I'm afraid. Yes,
Why don't you just unplug our scoreboard?
Angus,
He's a bitter
Angus,
man,
how many
isn't he?
points do we get?
Thank you. Good. So, well done, Ian and Harry. Excellent answer. It's
Just paid away his entire fee.
It's Gerald Ratner who described a decanter he sells as total crap and claimed that a pair of Ratner's earrings would last longer or as long as a prawn sandwich. A few months later, in August, Ratner was fined £11,000 for selling an unbreakable bracelet which broke. His lawyer explained that they were only unbreakable so long as you didn't try and break them. Paul and Clive, what does all this add up to?
Edwina Curry.
Curry's legs. Oh no, it's Norman Lamont. That's Black,
Paris.
Black Ball. That must be one of the Collins sisters. That's
Donald
Pamela
Crawford.
Crawford,
Yes. Liz Taylor.
that's
Eggs.
We're back to Gerald Ratner. That's
Well, is there any point in us actually answering this question?
No, Ian and Harry.
this. Oh, I know this. This does feature in because Edwina Curry brought one of the very few libel cases brought this year against a paper other than Private Eye.
She was actually
Character
compared to
described-
Charlotte Rampling, which I'd have thought would merit a writ from Charlotte Rampling myself.
Yes.
And she managed. I think she was successful, wasn't she?
She won damages, yes, she did.
Where did the eggs come into this story?
Is that just a cheap reference
the
to
eggs-
a story that's 3 years old?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
A cheap reference just to help you
Visual
realise that it
symbol
was
of
Edwina
Edwina
Curry, that's all. Wish we'd never bothered now. It's,
It's actually, with visual symbols, you actually helped us when you showed us a picture of Edwina Curry. That sort of pointed us in the right direction.
trying to help
But you had
out
a choice
here,
of
Paul.
either the cryptic
I
ones
see
or
we're
the
still
symbols.
losing, look.
Yeah.
Isn't she a regular on this programme?
Well, she was on it once, yeah.
Yes.
Not exactly being a regular, as you'll find out. Yes, it's our old friend Edwina Curry, who won damages from The Observer for comparing her to an adulterous murderer played in the film Paris by Night by Charlotte Rampling. Mrs. Curry said that she wouldn't have minded being compared to Joan Collins. No, I'm sure Norman Tebbit wouldn't mind being compared to Kevin Costner either. And that she'd even quite like to be compared to Liz Taylor. Well, OK, you're a fat, bloated alcoholic. Strange request, but there we are. Time now to...
Another writ, I think.
Not sure who from.
Bloated alcoholic.
I've just done that. gag.
She's a lovely
Time now
one.
to descend the stairway of memories to the very bowels
To
of...
descend the stairways of memory. You're turning into Dennis North. And now the stepladder of short-term recollection. The escalator of truth. As we move through the corridors of irony. Oh, no. Still losing, yeah.
This isn't what Question of Sport's like when you watch it at home.
No. They dub in Billy
Here
Beaumont
on
later.
false pretenses. Yes, and now we descend the escalator of truth through the corridors of irony to the very bowels of the BBC archives. One piece of rotting footage per team, both of which feature mystery voices. Ian and Harry, you're first. Who's this fresh young face?
We've had a German economic miracle, we've had a Japanese economic miracle, it's now time that we had a British economic miracle.
Robocop, is it?
That's what drug dealers always look like on the film. It's the chap in the rape case who had his face blobbed out. I don't know who the face is. The voice sounds like Norman Lamont.
Well, let's just have a look.
We've had a German economic miracle, we've had a Japanese economic miracle, it's now time that we had a British economic miracle.
Well, that was before that woman moved into his flat. Turned his hair white.
I know, he's aged badly, hasn't he?
Paul and Clive, another mystery voice from the past. Who is this?
And because I'm a trade unionist, and it is because I want to see the Tories beaten, and because I am willing to use any weapon to beat them,
then I am against EEC entry on these terms at this time.
Ah, yes.
We can spot a bit of ginger in there.
Yeah. The fact that it took 3 hours to explain one principle, which is going to be changed next week, is the clue, I think.
Yes, I think it is.
That's clearly the heroic leader of the Labour Party, just ahead of a U-turn or two.
Yeah. Well, let's see.
And because I am a trade unionist, and it is because I want to see the Tories beaten, and because I am willing to use any weapon to beat them, then I am against EEC entry on these terms at this time.
Yes, it's Neil Kinnock in 1971 pledging to remain out of Europe and being a man of his word. He's completely gone back on everything he said. In fact, he's done so many U-turns on the subject, he's now in serious danger of agreeing with himself. Of course, if we did go into Europe under Kinnock, it's dubious whether the interpreters would be able to stay awake long enough to translate any of his speeches. In German, in particular, where they put the verb at the end of the sentence, they'd have to wait 3 hours to find out what he was talking about. Of course, some of us have been waiting 21 years. At which point, I'm bound to tell you that concludes round 4.
Have you been waiting 21 years, haven't you?
Not personally, no, 35 years.
Right.
Surely a point for that. A witty interjection like that.
At which point, I'm bound to tell you that that concludes round 4, and our tinsel-clad scoreboard now reveals the seasonal tidings that, well, Paul and Clive now have 12, but Ian and Harry have a splendid 13. Round 5 would appear to be our odd one out round. 4 gruesome quartets of much-loved public figures, 3 of whom share some dark secret. Our panellist's job is to detect the infiltrator. Paul, a sporting foursome for you. Frank Bruno, Steve Davies, Paul Gascoigne's sister Anna Maria, and a pantomime horse.
I'm sorry.
That's
a dodgy photograph there.
That's not, in fact, Anna Maria. I feel as if I should point this out at this stage. It is, in fact, her brother.
You couldn't afford a photograph?
No. All the budget had been spent on the tinsel, unfortunately.
Well, it's quite obvious, really.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's Steve Davis, because all the other 3 have appeared in pantomime.
It's incredible, and it's true. Yes, 2 points. He's the only one not appearing in Panto this Christmas.
How do you know he's not the back end of that pantomime horse?
Where would he put his cue?
It doesn't bear thinking about. Clive, 4 Jimmy Somerville lookalikes for you. Ian Hislop, Arthur Scargill,
Hang on, I don't like the way this
Kenneth
is going.
Baker, and Basil Brush.
Well, I was tempted to say Basil Brush because he has a hand up him most of the time. That would apply to Ian, I suppose. They've all been in trouble with the law.
Clive, I thought you didn't want to go to court.
They've all been in trouble. Kenneth Baker was found in contempt of court recently, although he's Home Secretary. Arthur Scargill's always in trouble with the court, but he generally is found not guilty in the end. He was accused of purloining a lot of money by the Daily Mirror in a huge campaign. Pot calling the kettle black, I think, is the cliche we reach for there.
Yes, exactly.
Ian Hislop is in and out of the law courts constantly. There's a revolving door. Ye Hislop's entrance, we know it's in legal circles. And Basil Brush, I think, sued the Quorn Hunt for loss of peaceful enjoyment of the countryside. So I've excluded all of them. I'm the odd one out because I can't get this round right. Let's say it's... let's say I'd go for Basil Brush as the only one who hasn't been in the law courts.
Very good indeed.
So can I have a bonus? A, for being in the picture. But just technically, it's all about contempt of court.
Oh, give my points to Ian, then. That would seem fair. Ian, I meant to give you a Christmas present, and there it is. Have my points for this
That's the first time I've got something free from a lawyer in my life.
And the last.
Harry, an upper crust selection for you. King Edward VIII, Princess Michael of Kent, Dame David Bowie, and Benito Mussolini.
They're all foreigners except for David Bowie. I'd say that the other 3 are all foreigners, are they? Except for the King and
King
David
Edward.
Bowie.
Getting into deep
This is
water
a fascist question, isn't it?
It is, well done.
Benito Mussolini's a fascist.
Allegedly.
No, Benito Mussolini is a fascist. Sorry, was a fascist.
I think we can say that without fear of suing.
King Edward VIII had far-right sympathies.
Well, he met Hitler, didn't he?
And all his friends thought Hitler was very amusing at dinner. sort of country house fascist. Princess Michael, of course, isn't at all. Her father was. He was a bit of a fascist. He belonged to the SA, didn't he, in Austria?
That makes you a
The
fascist.
Salvation Army? That's a bit much, isn't it? Outrageous.
Awful thing to
I'd
say.
like to
to someone.
disassociate myself from that.
So who are you picking as the odd one out?
David Bowie.
Is wrong, but I'll give you one for getting the answer.
Yes, I'll have the points anyway. Have the points for turning up.
And wearing such a smart suit.
Yeah.
Yes,
Do we get a chance to answer this?
yes, you
Yes,
do.
we know the answer
You can
to
leap
this.
in and get the other.
We
point
know
if
the
you get it
answer,
right.
don't we, Paul?
Yes, off you go, Clive, tell them.
But I'm letting you get this one.
Well, David Bowie did do a thing at Victoria Station many years ago, publicised an album where he made a sort of fascist speech from the back of a car, which you've probably forgotten about.
Yes.
I would say it's Princess Michael of Kent.
Absolutely right. It's Princess Michael, as
Yes.
all the others were Nazis or fascist sympathisers. She was merely descended from them. And finally, in this round, Ian, 4 wise men for you: the Duke of Edinburgh, Haile Selassie, James Anderton, and the Emperor Hirohito.
Only one of them can do an impression of Larry Grayson.
Allegedly. It's an interesting point, but
Only one of them
completely
doesn't
irrelevant.
think they're God, isn't it?
It's a God question.
It is.
One of them doesn't have a direct line to God, and that's the Greek fellow, isn't it?
Well, that's not necessarily true, actually. Because the Duke of Edinburgh is a god in some very small British dependencies.
Oh, is he?
Anderson thinks he talks to God.
Yeah.
Haile Selassie was God.
Jah Rastafari.
Jah Rastafari.
As we call him in the reggae community.
See?
Keep follower of Jah Rastafari.
Yes,
And Hirohito's a god, so you plant.
there's another of your answers where you're going to pick all 4 and then compare.
3 of them are gods, and one of them has a hotline to him. So that's the answer, James Anderson.
James Anderson is correct, 2 points. He's the only one who is not worshipped as a god, or at least not outside his own house, anyway. And Prince Philip is worshipped as a god on the Pacific island of Tanna, where he's known as number 1 big fella. And at the end of that illuminating round, it's plain for all to see that Ian and Harry have 16, and Paul and Clive have a far superior 17. So in this one-off Christmas special, it's time for our exclusive royal round. 4 regal headlines for the teams to decipher, beginning with Paul. What is the price of bonking Miss Tonking?
I've got the telephone number, anyway.
This is Mark Phillips, isn't it? Didn't he have an affair with somebody, a woman in New Zealand, Australia?
It was a paternity suit that she put in. I can't remember what her child was called. Your Royal Highness, I think.
Yes.
Wasn't it because the babies had hooves or something?
It's New Zealand show jumper Heather Tonkin, who claimed in March to have been made pregnant in a horse riding clinic by Mark Phillips. At least it was either him or Champion. Dark at the time. Clive, a bit of hush for this. Shh, one's thinking.
Well, I can nearly remember this because it's something to do with Princess Anne wanting the loudspeaker turned down at Charing Cross Station. And the bit I can't remember is why she'd have needed that. Has she been living in a box on the Strand for the last year and has been disturbed by the tannoy announcements of being very loud? I think that's roughly right.
Something
isn't it?
along those lines.
It's also a free advertisement for Schweppes, the very, very good manufacturers of tonic water. And
They're crap.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think they're very good, and let's see who gets the crate of it delivered in time for Christmas tomorrow. Cadbury Schweppes, my kind of company.
Well,
Easter eggs, they do very good Easter eggs as well. I love them. Cadbury's Schweppes.
Can I just
That's it.
can I just say that you
on Channel
can't? Can I just say that you can't beat gold bullion?
No, I'm afraid you can't.
I think the announcement
quiet.
was the 8:47 to Purley is delayed, and Mark Phillips has got another woman up the duff. So she asked for it to be turned off, I think.
It's a reference to one Wednesday in April when Princess Anne asked for all the announcements at Charing Cross Station to be switched off for 4 hours, causing confusion and delays across the whole Kent region. So no change there. The reason given was that she was thinking. Good job it wasn't Princess Di, or they would have had to close down the whole of London. Harry, operation for Prince. Which one and why?
Oh, is this to do with Prince Andrew? Well, there's
No,
a picture of
the
him
answer.
naked in the sun. And instead of a manhood, he seemed to have a crown, so maybe... Or some other kind of helmet, so maybe they were doing some operation to change that. Or it could be Prince Charles who broke his arm.
I think it's the son of Prince Charles who got a golf club over his head.
Very good.
And had to have an operation to remove the golf club. And,
should have removed the head, in my opinion.
No, I think the Royal Family did a great job, but
tomorrow.
Up to you.
Yes.
Did you have a nice Christmas 5 days ago? Because we get repeated,
Yes.
don't we?
I did, actually, yes.
I can't wait for Boxing Day. It was fun the day before yesterday.
Wasn't there a
sorry.
pity about Clive Anderson being knocked down by that car? Apparently, the driver's headlights were dazzled on his head. They're just
It's Prince William who was rushed to hospital in a multi-vehicle convoy in June after a fellow pupil hit him on the head with a golf putter. A spokesman for the school expressed surprise and regret and said it's absolutely unthinkable that a fellow pupil should have hit the prince with a putter, should have chosen a 9-iron. And finally, Ian, no prizes for guessing. Who's a 4-star Charlie?
Oh, this is Prince Charles.
Point for that.
And 4 stars a type of petrol. Point for that?
No.
This is...
Because he drives a Bentley, which is a very, very good car, I think.
I like it.
Sorry, that's not my
Clive's very
question.
used to having his own show. It's very difficult.
You'll get yours one day, Ian.
Yeah. Prince Charles drove in his car to a summit in Europe in order to make a speech about economy of petrol on cars. And then it was revealed after he'd driven in one himself.
It's Prince Charles who, after making several entreaties on the environmental benefits of saving fuel, was discovered to have had his Bentley driven all the way to Czechoslovakia to meet him. The car apparently does 9 miles to the gallon. That's almost as much as Princess Margaret. This is merely the tip of the royal iceberg when it comes to petrol consumption. It transpires that the royal family uses 25 cars and 17 motorbikes for their engagements. They just can't get the Queen Mother off that Harley Davidson. All of which brings us to the end of that treacherous round. And the ever-mounting totals on our scoreboard read as follows. Ian and Harry have 18, and Paul and Clive are lengthening their stride with 23. And so we enter the welcoming arms of our penultimate round, some of the more frivolous bits of film footage to recollect. Ian and Harry, a particularly memorable, if damp, experience for you.
Right. That's the Pavarotti concert, isn't it? The royal family had their umbrellas up, and they were asked at the front, and all the politicians, and the people at the back asked them to put them down so that they could see them getting soaked.
And Princess Di was there, and Pavarotti sang a song especially for her.
It's all rather gorgeous, isn't it?
I don't remember any song called Overblown Tart.
Princess Di was particularly annoyed to be there since Duran Duran were playing Wembley Arena that night. And by all accounts, Norman Major was pretty miserable too, as apparently Guns N' Roses were on at Hammersmith Odeon. Paul and Clive, some heartwarming footage of man's best friend for you.
Yes, Rottweilers, Pit Bull Terriers.
This is to do with Kenneth Baker, isn't it? I recognised him there. This is banning pit bulls.
They've got to be muzzled, haven't they? And
Kenneth Baker has.
yes.
I thought it was just Kenneth Baker's always eager to please John Major, and he heard John Major in Cabinet one day say, "Why don't we muzzle the bitch?" But she's still there.
Well, they didn't manage it, did they?
Somewhere.
Apparently there are 10,000 pit bulls in Britain, together with 200 band dogs and 1 Japanese tozer. So if anyone's attacked by a tozer, even Scotland Yard should be able to solve that one. The owner of the only tozer defended her
Then
pet.
arrest a poodle. Put it inside for 15 years.
There'll be an Irish wolfhound, I think you'll find, yes.
Yes, the owner of the only tozer defended her pet. He's quiet and not aggressive, with a fantastic personality, said Mrs. Yvonne Wilson as he playfully spat out her big toe. Ian and Harry, what strange agricultural practice is this?
Serial killing.
We do deduct marks for puns on this programme, you do realise.
This is crop circles, corn circles.
It is.
It's someone demonstrating how they're made, isn't it?
There's two blokes called Doug and Pete, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Doug and David, actually, before you go into Pete and Doug impersonations.
All right, we'll go into Dave and Doug impersonations.
Hello, Doug.
Hello. You don't recognise it because Dave's not very famous.
Serial killer.
Very good.
I don't know how they think of them, you know, I don't.
5 points.
It's to do with a fraud, isn't it? It was found out to be a fraud. They're not aliens. It's these two people said we invented them. In fact, they were wrong. It was, in fact, Robert Maxwell being gentle with a secretary.
Robert Maxwell having a lie down, I thought it was.
Yes, it's
They
all
said
about...
they did them all. All of them all over the world, thousands of them in
They
6
couldn't have
different
done them all,
countries.
no. Yeah.
Which they obviously didn't.
No.
But the press, having believed it was aliens, thought, oh, it must be Doug and Dave now. Did some
Doug and
rigorous
Dave.
checking, went and took some photos in the field,
And then
had a
went back
couple
to
of
the-
pints, and then went home.
Went back to the planet Zanussi, didn't they?
Yes, it's all about the corn
Zanussi
circles.
washing machine.
Series
It's a particularly good brand of washing machine.
but it's now claimed that they were all faked by two pensioners, Doug Bauer and David Charlie. They were last seen heading off towards Scotland with a large rubber dinosaur. Lastly, Paul and Clive, what's this member of a popular beat combo been up to this year?
Look, there's Esther about to arrest him.
That's Bill Wyman trying to decide which one of those to marry.
He's got divorced, isn't he? Or he's suing for divorce, whatever you call it.
Yes, it is the Rolling Stones' Wrinkly, Bill Wyman, who this year divorced 20-year-old Mandy Smith, whom he first seduced when she was 13, and he's now going out with a 31-year-old. Outrageous, she's old enough to be his wife. Mandy Smith received £4 million as a payoff for a marriage that she says was only consummated 5 times, so that's £800,000 a bonk. Even the DPP couldn't afford that much. At the end of all that, it's time to turn our gaze to the gargantuan totals so far amassed. And as you can see, Ian and Harry have a not entirely bad 22, but Paul and Clive have a copious 27. Wow.
We're building a real Maxwell of a score.
And so we enter the home straight, that is our missing words round. Each team is shown a selection of the year's headlines with 1 or 2 words missing. They have to name those words or come up with a better alternative. As is traditional, he who lies last goes first, so Ian and Harry. That privileged position is currently held by you. Right. Bosses put Lamont in what?
Jail.
Panto.
James?
No, a spot is actually the answer.
They put him in a spot.
Curious idea,
The
isn't
spot
it?
cleared up immediately. I always use Lamont.
Next, Birmingham 6 detectives to what?
Become judges.
To face court is actually the answer. Next, Kinnock scorns the Tories and lays out what?
Frank Bruno?
New patio?
It's a lovely thought.
His policy for
His policies for Europe is a very sensible answer. I'll give you one. His priorities.
Oh, excellent.
Next,
Memorable headline.
London Zoo offers plan for what?
Thatcher's retirement?
Open air barbecue?
Lost a lot of friends there.
Rescue, is it?
Rescue.
Survival is actually the answer. And
Almost
finally,
rescue.
7,000... no, it's not. 5,000 pit bulls still to join what?
Masons.
Rolling Stones?
No.
Register.
Nothing. Yes, new register. Very good.
New register.
Let's see if Paul and Clive can do any better. Not difficult. Fergie bows to Queen's ban on what?
Cocaine?
No.
Bad children's books.
Friends is
Friends.
nearer the answer. And next, Kilroy is returning to what?
Primitive pond life? slowly sort of regressing backwards.
Not as far as I'm aware. Old time is actually the answer. Next, Hattersley pours what on Major's leadership?
Spittle.
Peanut butter.
Scorn.
Scorn is correct.
Yes,
Very
that's
good.
it.
Next, Orkney children are flown home to what?
Dolphins.
To spend Christmas in the arms of their family.
That's a lovely answer and completely
bed.
wrong. It's a party. And finally, Bug is found in Mirror Finance Chief's what?
Underpants.
Office.
Office is correct.
Yes.
Well
I
done.
thought it was a collection of insects.
Well, you'd be wrong.
They've had a look at the pension fund and apparently a big fat cheque is missing. It's Christmas, I don't care.
Right. So, after that non-existent display of lateral thinking, a fleeting glance at our score reveals that this year's stuffed turkeys are Ian and Harry with 26, and this year's plum puddings and recipients of a short snowfall are Paul and Clive with 31.
Oh. How lovely.
I never thought I'd see you with dandruff. Just another ball joke.
So, a corn-fed chicken to our winners, a bag of giblets to our losers. But before they rush off to Trafalgar Square for a quick dip, there's our caption competition to pay our respects to. Paul and Clive, what did you think of for this?
Well, it's Top Treks. Most chemists
Yes.
are handy.
The family size is particularly useful at this time of year.
Yeah. What about the caption for this?
Come here, Rudolph, I'll give you a red nose.
No, it's not a red nose, Rudolph, I was looking for.
DPP curb crawling scandal takes new twist.
Trying out these Wellington boots for a friend.
Thank you.
Hang on, Santa, you're Jeremy Beadle.
It's the minicab driver. I'm not going to South Antarctica at this time of night.
These High Court judges, they'll kick anybody.
Thank you very much indeed. Ian and Harry, how about yours?
EEC rules against Santa monopoly.
Mirror pensioners get employment. Spot the drunk.
Arsenal fans remember a happy time when they used to win.
Many years ago now. And on the...
How fascinating football is.
Wake up.
I tell you, I'm not interested in football. I'm more interested in the Bumper Private Eye book of jokes.
Well, I can't wait to get the video of the Clive Anderson show.
Oh, yes, you can. And
There's
on
the
that...
video of you on the show. You were a superb guest.
I was very good
Yes.
on your show.
You were excellent.
I didn't say too much. I
No.
let you talk all the time.
You got that out of your system.
Yes. Well, happy Christmas, Baldy. And you, fat face. Why, I'm on the team of the bloody Bash Street Kid every week.
An old acquaintance.
And on that seasonal note, we say thank you to our guests, Ian Hislop and Harry Enfield, Paul Merton and Clive Anderson. And I leave you until next Easter with news that sailing over to England for his Christmas concert, Luciano Pavarotti advisedly takes a walk along the starboard side of the ship. And finally, at long last, an answer to the mystery of the year, as Robert Maxwell is sighted off the coast of Gran Canaria.